Hello Galaxy, I'm Chris Pirillo and you've tuned into the Locker Gnome Daily Report, or TLDR for short. And I'm here to talk about one of my favorite features ever to be released by Apple. Ever! I mean, going all the way back to when I first got interested in Apple's products. I wasn't always interested in what Apple had to provide, but I became a fan fast when I realized that the way they executed software was exactly what it was I was looking for. Keep in mind, that was back in the day, and I'm not going to say that my tastes have changed, but technology has certainly changed. That's the whole idea of technology. It always moves forward. And sometimes I find myself waiting for something to happen, and it's difficult for me to wait. And I see gaps in experiences that I feel don't necessarily need to exist. And I've had this as an issue for a number of years, and so anybody who knows me knows this very, very well. I'm totally into fluidity. That's the name of the game. Fluidity. And when something is not fluid, it's not fun. And not to say that everything that you use in relation to technology needs to be fun, but it takes you out of that moment. It takes the magic of technology and it just knocks you right back into reality. And that, to me, is a problem. I love what technology does for me, but I also want to enjoy the experience. I want to be lost in that moment, not lose my life, right? This is not my identity. But when I talk about fluidity, this is something that's very difficult to convey. It's been difficult, challenging to convey to anybody online. And some people have challenged me to do videos on the topic. You can't show something that's fluid unless you capture it in such a capacity and it's viewed in such a way that you can actually see the fluidity rather than lost frames. So let's say you record something on a screen that's broadcasting or displaying in 60 frames per second or at 60 hertz, right? If the video itself is encoded to be 30 frames per second, it's not going to look nearly as smooth, especially if the animation or what happens to be taking place on the display is running smoothly at 60 frames per second, 30 frames per second. Well, now we're talking about 120 frames per second, 120 hertz, or Apple calls this ProMotion, one of the worst or best labels ever for a feature, because you try searching Apple ProMotion. you're never going to find the feature, right? So I've been pushing for years for more fluidity in software experiences, because I've seen fluid experiences at 60 frames per second. And at one time, Apple had fluid experiences at 60 frames per second. That all changed with the inception of iOS 7. And honestly, it had not gone unchanged from that point on. It was really choppy from that point on, up and until the point when Apple released its first iPad Pro with ProMotion. That is, being fully capable, the screen, the display, being fully capable of rendering animations or motion at 120 frames per second. And if you're saying that you can't see the difference between 60 frames per second and 120 frames per second, I'd be shocked. Maybe you're blessed and maybe you cannot see the difference, but I can. I can see the difference between 60 and 90 and 120. Now, you start getting past 120 and it's a law of diminishing returns, at least as far as my eyes are concerned. But when Apple released the iPad Pro with ProMotion, I was in. And it mitigated a lot of the choppiness that I had been experiencing up and until that point on the iPad. And I knew full well that eventually that technology would trickle down into iOS or the iPhone. And I'm not saying that all of the sloppiness and choppiness inside of iOS disappeared. It was largely mitigated. It did not disappear. I still have a laundry list of UI inconsistencies and UX snags with iOS and with iPadOS. But I will tell you this. When you start to use a screen, any screen, you use a PC, right? And you're just humming along, and then you buy a monitor with a high refresh rate because maybe you're into gaming. Then you see the difference. You know the difference between 60 frames per second and 120 frames per second. This is a big deal. I really don't know why Apple didn't hammer this point harder. I mean, it would have sold more iPad Pros and potentially more iPhone 13 Pros, because ProMotion is a big deal. This is what I've been, well, I can't say I've been using for the longest time. I've been using higher refresh displays on mobile devices as long as I could be using them at 90 frames per second. Let me tell you, 90 frames per second is a lot better than 60 frames per second. Absolutely. Again, you may be like, I don't see the difference. So Kurt Grosser, one of our mods here in the Twitch channel, because that's what I'm doing, I'm broadcasting this video live on Twitch as I'm recording it, he was thinking about getting the new iPad mini. And I said, no, take a look at the iPad Pro, specifically ProMotion. Like, you don't miss out on that. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, just go and look. See it with your own eyes. This is what I've been driving for. This is what I've been waiting for. This is what I've been clamoring for, because it makes things more fluid. Like, demonstrably more fluid. And for years, I've had people write me off and say, you're just seeing things. Are you gaslighting me? Don't tell me what I see and what I don't see. Because I'm telling you, this is what has been needing to happen. And it's happening. It's happening. I'm excited because now it's vindication. Because I've been saying this for years. You don't realize how choppy iOS is, and you won't realize it until you see it in 120 frames per second, and you'll see it more fluid. Not just because of the optimizations that Apple's made, because they have. They've gone deeper than just surface level stuff. But it's setting the stage for more fluidity in iOS, closer to what I've experienced on iPad OS. Again, not perfect, doesn't resolve all my issues with the platform apart from it. But in terms of creating more fluidity, this is what I've been saying has been missing for years. And what I've been told isn't a thing, or people don't care. They care. They just don't realize they care. And you just wait. You wait until the array of reviews come out on the new iPhones. Because, I mean, we've seen the reviews on the iPad Pros before. But the new iPhones, specifically the Pros with the ProMotion display, if anybody writes this off as, well, some people won't see it, they're missing the whole idea. They're missing the point. That's fluidity. That's what makes it magic. So I challenged Kurt, and he went into a store. I said, just look at a screen. Look at a ProMotion display, the iPad Pro. Look at the screen. And then compare it to an iPad that doesn't have ProMotion technology, that isn't rendering at 120 frames per second and animating in 120 frames per second, but the classic 60 frames per second, which has been outdated for years. I cannot tell you how excited I am about this feature. I'm excited that you can see it. I'm excited for you to finally see things the way that I see things, because he did the same thing that when he went in, did the side-by-side comparison. He saw it. He's like, oh my God, it's night and day. It's night and day. And now the old iPad looks choppy. Well, that's what it's looked like for years for me. Even without a ProMotion display, I can tell you it was just choppy. And now you'll be able to see it. Vindication! I'm glad Apple's doing it. I'm glad other companies have been doing it. And I'm glad to have used products from other companies who have been doing it. I run at 120 frames per second on my macOS desktop through an external monitor. Once you go 120, it's impossible to go back to 60. Impossible. You might be able to slide back to 90, but once you're at 120, you can't look back. There's no looking back. There's no turning back. I'm telling you, it is a big deal. If you were on the fence for any technology out there, I say push for as many frames per second as you can, because it will make your experience that much more fluid. Whether we're talking about a desktop PC or whether we're talking about a mobile screen, 120 frames per second, 120 hertz, it's a big deal. And you can't tell me I'm the only one who sees this. I bet you see it too.